Welcome to our Week 16 review of the NFL here at Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. Hope you all had a fantastic Christmas. We're here to fill the gap in between that middle of nowhere period between Christmas and New Year to keep you all entertained. Plus, there's a lot went on. Games over Christmas, some massive results. We are much closer to knowing who's going to be in the postseason. And we're certainly much closer to knowing who's going to be the number one seed, especially in one side of the NFL. Joe, Byron, welcome. How are your Christmases, first of all?
Yeah, good. Yeah, pretty quiet. Didn't go up to too much craziness, but yeah, it was nice. Yeah, how was yours?
Yeah, good. Pretty quiet, to be fair. And took part in the best Boxing Day tradition there is, with going to a football game on Christmas tradition on Boxing Day. Yeah, pretty good. Lots of food, minimal booze actually. Minimal booze and lots of food. It's usually lots of food and lots of booze.
And how's yours, Joe? Barely heavy?
Yeah, man's good. Christmas Day was fairly chilled. Christmas Eve, was at the pub all day, so I was trying to watch the games while, also figuring out which screen to look at and actually be sociable at the same time. But it was a great Christmas. It was a fun time. So,
yeah. Good stuff. All great for the review. Yeah, I've done nothing but watch NFL and college football as well, to be fair. Pretty much has been my Christmas, which is great. And let's get into it, because that's what we're here to discuss. We're just going to rifle through, starting with our FourFold Challenge picks, and we'll touch on every game. We're going to dive a bit deeper when we get to them on Joe's 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens, the Lions and Vikings, and also Cowboys, Dolphins. Lots of great games this week. And then we'll have a review of Fantasy Gameday winner. The winner of Fantasy Gameday for Christmas Eve, because there were two games, but focus on the Christmas Eve one, was our guest from week 14, I want to say. It was Dan Horton from the Up Punts podcast, who had the winning lineup. So we'll break down Dan's lineup. It was a great one. We had a real good week. We were pretty close, actually. A couple of other things bouncing our way, and we might have had a shot at winning. We'll go for our winners and losers. And our bets for the week. I think it was a pretty productive week for the bets on Christmas Eve as well. So let's get straight into it then. FourFolds were a bit of a mess, though. That's certainly one thing that didn't go so well. I had another nightmare, 1-3. I think me and Joe are sharing the dunce hat this week. Joe also 1-3. Byron 2-2. And our guest, Simon Winstanley from the UK Steelers podcast, also 2-2. I've been horrendous with the favourites, and that run continued. I had the Green Bay Packers as 5-point favourites versus the Carolina Panthers. And for a very long time, this looked comfortable. And then Green Bay just absolutely fell apart. They've won the game, but my God, that defense looks horrendous for the Packers at the minute.
Yeah, I think Joe Barry's out at the end of the season, certainly. And I don't know if you've seen Jai Alexander's being given a one-game suspension by the Packers for conduct detrimental to the team, I believe it's been listed as. So he wasn't a captain for the game, but he ran on to do the coin toss unofficially and unannounced and unlicensed, I guess, and nearly fucked it up. He didn't defer. He said he wanted to be on defense, and the refs kind of bailed him out and said, "What, you mean defer?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah. And his coaches were furious, and he's been suspended again. And I think that, you don't like to draw too broader lines, but it kind of speaks to the indiscipline of the Packers defense, so that it feels like the longer the season goes on, they get worse by the week. It feels like I feel for, Jordan Love and that young offense doing the best to, they won this week, obviously, but that defense is dragging them to places they don't want to be, and it's going to make even if they do sneak in the playoffs, they're going to be one and done, because that defense isn't slowing anybody down. If they're not slowing Bryce Young down, they're not standing as a playoff defense.
It feels Go on, Joe. Sorry,
I was going to say, this is a team which I just do not want in the playoffs. There's certain teams now who are like in and around that playoff mix, and it's just like, just lose out. No one wants to see you in the playoffs. You probably, young fans, don't want to see you get absolutely hammered in the playoffs in the first round. So let's just, let the teams who can compete sneak in there and you just go away because a few weeks in a row they've just been, like you said, the defense has been terrible. You're playing Bryce Young and the Panthers offense, who've done literally nothing all year, and they've managed to, put some good numbers up and probably look the best he has all season, and that's just hugely telling you got the win. But yeah, it's just, and then Panthers keep costing you, Paul. That's twice in a row going against Bryce Young.
They'd won one game all season, and they've ruined my favorite, because they, maybe they were going to win a second game, but surely, and now they did. Not only did they not win, but also fucking got close enough to cover. But yeah, the Packers looked, because the things that the defense has got, because it got to the point. What were we talking 3 weeks ago? Maybe the last 6 weeks before, that defense would look really, really good and probably peaked against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, and then it's just tailed off completely. Giants, Bucks, Panthers. It's going to cost them a slot in the playoffs. I think they're going to they have to win both the games and probably need a favor. Need some help as well. So I think they're done. But shout out Bryce Young. Yeah, Joe, your point. It's the best of luck. So I don't know how much that was the Panthers actually being good, because it took them a while to get going in the game, or just the Packers looking bad. But maybe a bit of hope for those in Carolina, that maybe we've seen Bryce Young find a way to win a game the week before, hang around in this game, put up 30 points that's the first time this year to put up 30 points, right? So, maybe some hope to end the season for the Panthers.
Yeah, the Packers helping the Bears out as well with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, absolutely, doing them a favour. Yeah, any notable stuff. Aaron Jones back, had a big day, obviously back from injury. I think he ran for 127 yards on the ground, and that's kind of it, really. So another favourite of mine. I'm sure. I think maybe I've won 2. I might be like 2 and 14 on the favourites or something for this FourFold Challenge. I've just been horrendous at them. Apologies to your team if I keep picking you as a favourite, because more often than not you lose. Never mind not covering, you just lose. Byron,
I was going to maybe just give the Panthers a Christmas present and keep picking against them.
Yeah,
because it's making them competitive.
Maybe, yeah.
I think that's the first thing that goes up on the, bulletin board in the locker room in Panthers HQ is what has Paul Redmond picked this week? He's wrote us off again. Fuck that guy.
Fair enough. Yeah, just keep sticking it to me. Let's, speaking of maybe some pride and some teams that might have seen some bulletin board material, the Chargers ran the Bills extremely close. You had the Bills -12 as your favourite, Byron. And Bills won by 2, 24-22. This was on the Saturday. I think the Bills got away with one here. The Chargers, I think, maybe could have beaten. They had the ball to win the game, which is wild if you're saying that beforehand.
Yeah, I think as well. I think I looked at the sheet wrong. I thought it said -2 for the Bills, and I thought I was getting a push here. So, I mean, that's really a 1, 2, and 1, or 2, 1, and 1, really. But no, credit the Chargers and credit dancing on Brandon Staley's grave, because the comparison in effort between Saturday and the prior Thursday was noticeable. This is a team who went out and played for their interim head coach, and I think more to the point, played for themselves. Because you don't want the stink of that Raiders game to be how your season's remembered. It's not going to be remembered well, but you don't want to be the team that gave up, with 3 games to go. So credit to them for fighting back. And yeah, Buffalo really got away with one here. I know there's slightly different skill levels, but Buffalo remind me of the Seahawks. And I say this a lot, I think, of I just don't know who's going to turn up any given week. And maybe that's why I shouldn't pick them as a 12-point favorite. But I thought the Bills were kind of past this, and they're clearly not. Because they easily could have lost this game. Like you said, the Chargers had the ball to win with no players. Easton Stick and Gerald Everett, going to town on the Bills. And the Bills was kind of letting them. Cameron Dicker went 5 for 5 to boost his Pro Bowl hype. And I think you kind of just have to say, Bills got away with one. On to next week for them. Good for the Chargers for putting a bit of effort in.
Yeah, I mean, shout out, by the way. I know we probably missed it in our group, but that promo video that the Chargers have produced. One thing the Chargers are really good at, their social media team are incredible.
Yeah.
Cameron Dicker, the kicker, promo, the injury lawyer promo. It's just absolutely incredible. If you've not seen it, go find it. And well worth 90 seconds of your time. I think for the Bills on this one, they had to lean on, I think it was Gabe Davis, wasn't it, who had the huge game, who
130.
I imagine if you've had him in your fantasy football team this season, has been up there with one of the most frustrating people to have in your team. He does literally nothing. I think there's multiple games he's had where he's not even had a catch. And then he does this, and you probably missed all the times he's had big games because...
I was going to say, if you've got Gabe Davis, you probably weren't playing him this week anyway. Or you probably weren't playing for anything that matters this week. So
that's fair.
But I mean, I don't want to dive too deep into the future with these teams, but like Stephon Diggs stuff's really concerning for Buffalo. He hasn't been going, I think, since before Ken Dorsey got fired, but certainly since Joe Brady's been the OC. He hasn't had a game worth noting in 6-7 weeks. And he's a big ticket item. I think there might be an exit coming in the offseason because Diggs doesn't stick around where he doesn't feel loved. I think it's fair to say from his Minnesota time. There's already been like grumblings online with his brother, Trevion Diggs, chirping on his behalf, I would dare say. And I just think it's probably going to be I don't think Steph Diggs is going to be there and not be the alpha dog getting 13 targets again.
No.
I would say it's a big win for the Bills. In the sense, it feels like the kind of team who, when they're supposed to win by loads, they shit the bed. They feel like they've been there all season. So if they lost this, it would have been very typical of their year. How they lost, like the Patriots should have lost the Giants. That kind of performances. But when they play big teams, they have big performances. And I think Chargers just changed the defense up. And I think this is the one knock on Josh Allen. He just tries to go for the glory ball, or he just goes for stuff all the time. And having him on fantasy has been a bit frustrating this year in terms of. There were so many times they were just playing too deep and they were just like daring him to just go for the big shot. And at the beginning, it wasn't working. So I think that Gabe Davis touchdown at the beginning helped them out massively because it was looking like, oh, Jesus Christ, this could turn into something really bad. So it's a big win. They still got a chance to win the division. I think, obviously, we'll speak about Miami later on, but that result didn't help them and the hope for Baltimore, but keeps them in that race. And they're just hoping for Baltimore to help them out, and we'll have a fun week 18 there.
Yeah, I think, we all want that week 18 showdown, I think, don't we, with the Bills and Dolphins for the division, just because of how big a game it will be. And I
think the problem is, even if because the schedule's pretty decent, so their actually record's not bad, but if they go 1-1 still, they might not make it just because of all the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Around there, so they're still going to have to win both games. I think they're on 9 wins now.
Yeah,
so the 9 and 6 and they're the 6. As we said, everything stands right now. They're the 6 seed.
So even if they're like the 10, if they win 10, that could still not be enough just because of all the tiebreakers around there. So it's it was a huge result for them.
My gut says I think they'll be okay, just because the Colts have to play the Texans, don't they? Still, and they're both on 8. So only one of them could get to 10. So I think they'll be okay just with it is because you'd be having to look an awful lot go against them.
We're doing another playoff preview on Friday. Is that where this is leading?
That is not where it's leading. It was a great episode. Go check it out. Sorry. I'm dying after Christmas break.
Sounds like a man who had minimal booze.
There we go. We're back. I've lost my train of thought completely. Yeah, I want that showdown. Give me week 18 for, I want Dolphins Bills as the big game, week 18 for the division. So I think it will be I think it's the best of the potential games that showdowns we've got for divisions, and would be incredible. So give me that. But yeah, I think, Bills, squeezed by one, and maybe we should have expected it in terms of letdown spot for the Bills after the Cowboys win. Chargers have got some pride. Maybe 12 was too many. Turned out it was. Joe, your favourite was the Rams against the Saints on Thursday Night Football. Were you getting a bit nervous towards the end of this one when the Saints just decided to, pull the finger out and start scoring?
Yeah, a little bit, just because it was so easy, like 3 quarters through, and the Rams dominating. I think it was one of them. If it was a typical Derek Carr game where he doesn't play well 3 quarters and then he pads the stats at the end, gets a few touchdowns, and then when you look, he hasn't had that bad of a game. But again, I know I'm the Saints hater on this podcast, and number one fans not enjoying it right now. But again, they're one of them teams I just don't want in the playoffs. I just don't think they're a fun team to watch. They're just, when you see the Rams, that's the kind of team you want in the playoffs, who have got something about them, who can beat the big teams, who are entertaining. And yeah, with the Saints, they didn't think they had a good game, and they just put some points to the end just to make it look a lot better than it actually was. And I think even Saints fans are just not happy with how it is as well. I think they're all hoping Dennis Allen goes. You might be stuck with Carr for another year, but that experiment hasn't gone well. But maybe a new coordinator in the future helps that. But it's just, they're just a team. If they win any other division, it would be like a disaster kind of year that they'll be calling for heads right now. It's just the fact that, Tampa Bay is doing well now, but other than them, it's and the Rams keep on rolling, and I think they're probably the wildcard team who's playing the best, even probably better than the Cowboys right now. So I think things are looking up for them, and you've got to give it to Sean McVay, because at the start of the year, I think everyone was like, is this team even going to win 4 or 5 with all the players they've got? And they've just been, they've just shown up, had a great draft class, and just keep on rolling.
Yeah, and speaking of that, again, Puka Nacua, again, another huge game. 9 grabs, 164 yards, and a touchdown for a 5th rounder. He just gets better. It's almost by the week. He just seems to be getting better and better value. Incredible year. And any other year, he'd have been Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think. Any other year. But yeah, just incredible. The Rams just kind of so solid. Just got a bit sleepy at the end. But Stafford, clean game. Thought he had a great game. Kyron Williams again. That they've got a rushing game to balance that, and you've got 2 threats, and they've got Tyler Higbee awake as well. They've kind of gone through most of the season without really any kind of threat from the tight end position, and the last 3 weeks or so, Tyler Higbee's woken up. So yeah, I a real tough out in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a real tough out. And then, the Saints. I suppose less said about the Saints, the better. I think it's done now for the Saints. I suppose they could create chaos by going to Tampa and beating the Buccaneers next week. But they have to have that one. Obviously, the Bucs win them in the division. But if the Saints beat them, then it's chaos again into Week 18. But I think it's done now. I think that's Tampa now.
Just on the Puka Nacua Rookie of the Year, he needs 147. He needs 148 yards to set the rookie all-time receiving record. If he gets that, is there an argument to give him the Offensive Rookie of the Year over CJ Stroud?
Possibly. I think probably with CJ Stroud, I think it's the difference he's made to that whole...
It's franchise changing.
Yeah.
And when was the last time? I'm just trying to whether like a rookie quarterback suddenly became like a top 10 quarterback within in his rookie year. I'm just trying to think that, because there's so many which struggle in the first year, and there might be the second, third year where they made that leap. But he's jumped in top 10 straight away, and I think probably it's helped with. There's a lot of quarterbacks there's not been an outstanding quarterback this year, so it's made it all bunched up. So he is in that top 10, and you could either push a bit higher as well with how he's played. But I think. Yeah, it's unfortunate quarterback league. When you hit on a quarterback, it is, like you said, franchise change, and it's sets you up for 10 years. Having a great wide receiver helps, but it doesn't, there's plenty of franchises who's had a top wide receiver, but have gone nowhere because they've got a medium quarterback. So I do agree with you. He should be considered. He should be in the talk, but I think it's just how Stroud's played, and maybe he comes back and has 2 absolute stinkers, and it puts it up into debate, but I can't.
And I think the only way it is a conversation is if he gets a record.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
In terms of rookie seasons, I was trying to think myself. I think you're going back nearly 10 years, really. Like Dak Prescott maybe had a great rookie year, but that was on Cam back a bit. And then I was going to say Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, RG3 were all in back-to-back years. So
Herbert and Murray won Offensive Rookie of the Year, didn't he? So that's 2020, 2019. But it's not as quarterback prolific for understandable reasons, as it's tough to come in and hit the ground running. But probably that was probably the last one, to be fair, I think, to be as good as that. And certainly even less expectation on Prescott because he was a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
and came in late in the preseason for injured Tony Romo. So yeah, RG3 maybe as well in terms of turning around. Anyway, done with that game. Rams probably need one more win. Do we think one more win should do it for the Rams?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and they've got the Giants, who, we'll talk about the Giants in a minute, but the Tommy DeVito run has ended.
Yeah. And unfortunately for the Rams, though, they do have the 49ers again, and any talk of the 49ers taking a week off, I think is gone.
Gone, yeah, I think so. We'll get to that. Joe, that's the last game we're going to talk about, by the way, so you have to wait till the very end. Probably for the best. Simon Winstanley, our guest from the UK Steelers podcast, went against his own team. He took the Bengals as 2-point favourites, and the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely wiped the floor with him. Where did this explosion come from? And the answer to the question just isn't just Mason Rudolph, is it? Because it was just the offense as a whole just completely turned around.
Yeah, I don't think you can say it was all Mason Rudolph, but I wouldn't be betting against Rudolph at Christmas. I have that one for free. It just felt like they were willing to throw the ball downfield, which really helped. It sounds very simple, but Kenny Pickett hasn't ever done it. Whether that, want to blame Matt Canada for that or blame Kenny Pickett for that, I think there's probably blame for both there. Trubisky, I've kind of felt since he left Chicago, he's kind of like an okay backup. I think there's something there if you kind of restrict him to spot appearances, and that's wrong. He's completely fell off. He looks completely washed in Pittsburgh. And Rudolph kind of looks competent. It won't last. This year has been a real, not really, it's like breaking news, but, backups are great for 2 starts. And then everybody realizes why they're a backup. We've seen it over and over. I'm not going to try and list them all this year, but it's been over and over. And it's going to happen to Mason Rudolph again if he wins this week. It's one good game. Fans are all chanting Mason Rudolph, which is a nice moment for him. And, he's loved in that building. Mike Tomlin won't get rid of him. So he obviously has a good personality, despite what Myles Garrett might say. But I think kind of on the opposite side as well, like, I'm not going to say it was a see the light moment for Jake Browning, but again, just a backup who he's had his moment, and now we're seeing the other side of it, why he's a backup, and kind of, again, I don't want to be too harsh because he is a backup and he is playing his first games of his career, but, he was exposed a bit. He threw 3 interceptions, just never really got going, and, Mike Tomlin is an underdog once again.
Yeah, I mean, I'd abandoned it, and then all of a sudden this comes back. And I think ultimately, we talk about the offense absolutely right so should get some praise because, we saw a huge game out of George Pickens coming back from a lot, and rightly a lot of criticism for his lack of run blocking the week before. But he kind of sort of felt he had a point to prove and had a huge game. I think it was 195 yards. 2 touchdowns, like the Randy Moss stat line. Just massive game and was needed. But I think, a lot of credit should absolutely go to the 2 defensive studs yet again for the Steelers. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith caused absolute chaos. And I think, that just Jake Brown wasn't allowed to settle. They gave him a real rough time, constantly getting in the backfield, forcing plays off schedule. I think it was only 3 sacks, but the amount of times they hit him and harassed him, and it was just, I
felt like Highsmith in particular, it just felt like he was in the backfield every play.
Yeah, and they were just like possessed, and they were going to find a way to win this game for the Steelers. All of a sudden, again, after sort of saying last week, that's it, they're done, they're washed. Well, they're in, there's 4 teams there at 8 and 7.
Yeah. And across the league, and this is including the NFC and the AFC, to be fair, but like 44% of the league has 7 or 8 wins. It's insane. The parity is...
It's what the league wanted, isn't it?
It's what... Yeah, I love it. It makes this end of the season super interesting. Nobody's taking weeks off. Maybe Baltimore if they get there, I guess. But like, not many teams are able to try and rest, relax, or anything else in these last few weeks. You are alive for a playoff spot.
Yeah. I think though. I think the Bengals. For me, I think Bengals are safe. I think the Bengals are done now. Bengals go to Kansas, and we'll talk about the Chiefs. But yeah, and then they've got the Cleveland Browns at home, who I guess may be done by then and in there. But I think the Bengals are done. Bengals are going to need to win too. But I think the Steelers are alive again, just like that. I think they're alive again.
Isn't this a problem though? We've said this like every single week, like that team's done and this team's in, and then next week Steelers will get absolutely hammered. The Bengals will win. It's just they seen Paul Redmond on the bulletin board saying Paul Redmond has gone against them, no longer backing Tomlin underdog, and they're coming up trumps. So I do agree with you. I think with the Bengals with their schedule, but I wouldn't also be surprised if they go in, beat the Chiefs, and then suddenly the Steelers lose and it's all up for grabs again. It feels like that kind of that kind of year where you just can't write anyone off, and the vice versa. Like we talked about the Packers earlier, like, oh, this team's going to make the playoffs. They're one of the best teams like 2 or 3 weeks, and look at them now. There's that many teams where they'll go on a good 2 or 3 week run, usually with a backup quarterback, and then we're all like, this team is a strong team, and then suddenly they lose the next 2. So it's a weird year. There's not many great teams. Everyone feels a bit mediocre.
Yeah, and I think I was looking ahead a little at the Steelers. They could sweep the Ravens and miss the playoffs. How is that possible? But it very much is. They lose to Seattle this week. They're almost certainly out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's must win this week. They're also 3.5 point underdogs so far.
They are going to win.
I think I'm back in on them. Like Tomlin's underdog train. And then all of a sudden, again, that's another great one that potentially the Ravens might need a win to secure the number 1 seed. Steelers need a win to get into the playoffs. What a great AFC North game that'll be for Week 18. Another juicy one. Yeah, back in on the Steelers. I mean, they'll probably be terrible next week against Seattle. But hey-ho. Joe, me and you were on the underdogs. Talking shit in the bed. The Colts were awful. Where did this come from? Because the Colts had been pretty solid for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I think we didn't realize Pittman was out, and then you look at the wide receivers the Colts actually had, and he was like, never heard of like half of these players. They're probably are not on anyone's fantasy team. So obviously that doesn't help the skill position. Obviously having Jonathan Taylor back, I thought, that could help them out, and it looked like it did at the beginning, but then they were playing the Falcons, who I feel like it was more the Falcons. Heineke didn't shoot himself in the foot. It felt like he did what Ridder can't do, is finish off drives and be mistake-free. I think there was one play where he could have had a pick six, but other than that, he actually had a good game. And it feels like that's been the Falcons all year, that if they just had a capable quarterback who could just, when they get in the red zone, punch it in and don't turn it over numerous times a games, then they could have been where Tampa Bay is right now. So again, I think it's how this year is. I wasn't I picked the Colts to win, but I'm also not surprised that they didn't win, and the Falcons are a team where they'll beat decent teams and then they'll lose the week after. So I think it's just that kind of year. I think everyone's very middly. And like you said, they did shit the bed a bit, but it makes it interesting, the AFC South, in terms of it feels like when one team loses, they all lose. It's like that kind of year. So they're still in it. They're still in the playoff mix. Still definitely in the winning the division. But yeah, both teams I'm not super excited about. It's what it is.
We'll talk about the Jags in their game, but they had another. They've lost 4 in a row. They've had another break again this week with the teams around them. The Texans and Colts both losing. And they're still top of that division. And are they just going to do enough to hold on? I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, a big blow for the Colts that one, because I thought it was a game they could go win. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta, played a bit of a cleaner game. Still didn't do too much. It's not as if they kind of really, still didn't really make a conscious effort to get their bigger plays involved. Apart from Robinson, Bijan had 19 touches, 122 yards combined in the air and on the ground. But yeah, I guess they just go another week. And again, the Falcons, praying that the Saints do them a favor in week 17 by going beating the Buccaneers, and then the division's still alive, head into week 18. And they need to do their bit as well. Still, let's move on from that one. Yeah, Colts were 1 point favorites at the time. I think at 1 point underdogs. It flipped. They were favorites, I think, when I saw it at the oh, no, it went to, they were +3, weren't they? Sorry, yeah. 3 point underdogs. I guess that was the Pittman stuff. And then, yeah, Atlanta beaten by 19. Byron, you were on the Eagles.
I was on the Giants, yeah.
Giants, and that definitely should be a cross. So you also went 1 and 3, right? Eagles only won by 8, right?
Yeah, and I had the Giants +12.
Oh yeah, shit. Sorry.
We're on underdogs.
Turkey brain.
Turkey brain. And women complain about baby brain. Yeah, just once again, kind of what I said last week is why I picked it. I just don't think the Eagles are a good enough team to blow anyone out really right now. They're susceptible down the field. That didn't fully play out as I expected. Darius Slayton had a big grab for a touchdown. And yeah, Giants, I don't think are shaking anyone up right now, but the Eagles just seem so flawed and they just seem so easy to attack down the field that 12 points just felt like too much even at home. And what did it end up being? 8, 25-33?
Yeah, 33-25 to the Eagles in the end. Apologies for that, my mental error. The fact that, with slightly better clock management, the Giants could have got themselves in a position to tie the game. And they had one shot at the end zone from 25 yards out that was picked. But yeah, a little bit better clock management from the Giants, and they could have got that a lot closer and maybe forced overtime, which would have been very interesting. Feels like the Eagles sort of came alive a little bit more, especially when they started getting AJ Brown the ball after halftime.
Yeah.
How can we not go past this game with, is this worse than the butt fumble? No, we'll talk about the death of Tommy. Is this worse? Boston Scott's fumble, the kickoff return fumble, where he just ran into the back. Well, I don't know if he ran into the back or Zacchaeus just took him out.
Zacchaeus ran at him.
Ran whatever it was.
Friendly fire on Christmas. Come on.
I think what's funny, this wasn't even the worst fumble of this weekend as well. And we'll be getting to that game in a bit. But yeah. And were you worried about in a half-time when it was like 20-3 and he felt fairly comfortable? And then suddenly, it helped the Giants just came out and was like bang, bang, 15 points.
Yeah, I definitely thought, again, not so much that the Eagles were like blowing the doors off, because I don't think they were. It was just more, the Giants are really bad on offense and worse than I was anticipating. Once again, their backup quarterback has a couple of games of looking like, oh shit, it's a thing. Get Tony DeVito his money. And it flamed out, obviously, because it always does. But yeah, really helped by Olamide Zacchaeus coming out and attacking his own player on kickoff and giving the Giants that short field. But yeah, at halftime I was thinking, this was a stupid pick. The Giants can't score even against this ridiculously bad Philly defense. But turns out you just need Tyrod.
Yeah, so we've seen the end of Tommy DeVito now, haven't we? Sadly, it was good while it lasted.
The thing, it was memorable. We won't just all forget about it.
Don't be sad. It's over. Be glad that it happened.
And to be fair, I did see some rumors that he wasn't actually benched. His mom just made him come home for Christmas dinner at halftime. Not confirmed.
I think he's done enough to get, he'll certainly be around again come training camp and stuff like that, whether it's the Giants or somebody else. And he might get a chance to be on the team again next year, because I think what he did in that span, he did actually pretty well after coming in and just looking like complete fish out of water, to win, lead a team to 3 straight wins in the NFL. Not easy to do. So, yeah, maybe he'll get a chance at latching on somewhere. And it'd be fun to see him again at some point. Giants 5-10, Eagles 11-4. That's probably done it for the division. And we'll talk about Dallas later. Soon, actually. Probably done it for the NFC East now. And, the Eagles probably just need to really need to clean things up if they're serious about getting back to the Super Bowl again and winning it all. But, 33-25. Giants covered for you, Byron. Simon picked the Dallas Cowboys as his underdog, 1.5 point underdogs against the Miami Dolphins on the road. And where to start with? So let's start with the Dolphins. Dolphins in the playoffs, obviously a walk-off field goal to win 22-20. Dolphins in the playoffs, still got a chance to win that division. And I don't know. I didn't think the Dolphins looked particularly great. Defensively, they had a stretch where they did look really good. And after that, particularly those first couple of drives where Dallas just kind of walked all over them, found some pressure on Prescott and really kind of stopped Dallas offensively for that middle portion of the game.
Yeah.
I suppose kind of that, quarters 2 and 3 especially. That was probably their highlight. And I suppose Tua leading the drive. Again, they had a bit of help. But to get that walk off field goal, does this do enough to shake the Dolphins? Are Dolphins not a fraud now that they've beat a good team, or are Dallas in a situation where they aren't that great and this isn't a big enough of a win for Miami?
I think it helps. I think because I only caught a glimpse of this and I've seen quite a bit of the highlights just checking, but it did feel like, I don't know if you think the same. I felt like the Dolphins deserved to win it, not by much, but it seemed like they were the better team. And I think it helps. Obviously, it makes next week even bigger because they still can get that number 1 seed if they beat the Ravens next week. And obviously, that'll mess up the Week 18, but it makes that game interesting in the sense where Bills can make the playoffs or the Dolphins get the number 1 seed. So I think it certainly helped. The run game at the end helped. I don't know in terms of the Cowboy end, is it something where the defense is not as special as we thought it was coming into this year, where we are surprised at the end when the Dolphins went down the field? It wasn't like they had to do loads. It feels like they were just scared of Tyreek Hill most of the game, and they're just thinking and playing fairly soft. So I think it's more disappointing the Cowboys defense that coming into this year was like, this could be the best defense in this league, and it's just not turned out that way. And you can't, I thought Dak had a good game. You can't blame it on him. And I think when we were messaging Paul, you mentioned about not too happy with Mike McCarthy's, some of his calls and some of his coaching.
I think just your game awareness, your situational awareness of kind of understanding the time on the clock and the fact that you're going to need possibly need to factor in that you're not going to get the stop and you need time. That drive, the drive for Dallas to take the lead took forever while still leaving plenty of time on the clock. Enough time for Miami to burn and walk off. Right? It was just really, really poor. Just a couple of calls, especially the goal line. The one where, which ended up, that touchdown drive ended up going on, I think it was 19 plays, took nearly 8 minutes. They got to, with the flag, first and goal at the 1 and tried to go play action, and Prescott was sacked and lost 8 yards. Just run it in. That's probably 2 or 3 minutes of that drive they get back. So there's just some stuff. Some of the stuff you can't play, maybe don't try and give your fullback 5 touches on the opening drive, because eventually he's going to fuck up, right? Because how many times has he touched the ball all year? Stuff like that, I don't know. It was just really frustrating. I was disappointed in the defense. They just couldn't get any pressure on Tua. They finally got a sack, I think, late in the third or early in the fourth quarter. But I think what the defense did do was there was a lot of bend and don't break from Dallas. Ultimately, if you'd have told me before the game that Jason Sanders was going to be having to try field goals from 50 plus yards because drives were stalling, I'd have snapped my hand off all day. Turns out he had a career day. Just kept nailing him.
I would say that the weird thing is a few teams have done this year where they're trying to keep hold of a lead and still play that bend down break, and then they're surprised that the team managed to get into a field goal position to win it. It feels like this happened so many times this year with teams. It's like you've got to try and be a bit more aggressive there because if you give up a big touchdown to Tyreek Hill, hey, guess what? You've got plenty of time to actually get it back instead of letting them just slowly and surely dink and dunk and run it down your throats and then suddenly there's no time left.
Yeah, I mean ultimately, I think probably what killed that drive to begin with, the first play of the drive, you give a 15-yard face mask penalty away. And it was just no need for it. And all of a sudden, within 5 seconds, Miami are at midfield.
Yeah.
And it's just time and time again, the ill discipline of this team. And that's, of course, it's the players that commit the fouls, but it's the coach. It is absolutely the coaching, and that falls on McCarthy. Just absolutely brain dead at times. I think, look, Dallas might struggle to go. I think I keep saying that NFC South's open. If it's Tampa, right now, today, I think the Cowboys would struggle to beat Tampa in Tampa Bay. I wouldn't even be sure the Cowboys would be 3-point favorites.
I think they would be. Not saying they necessarily should be, but the volume of bets I think on Dallas would be make them 3.5 point favorites, whether that's right or not. I just think the volume would be there. And I think it's about the only player you didn't touch on there. Tony Pollard from the 1 yard line, and he's fucking juking. Just run fucking forward. But
you could just run for the pylon, and he's run for the pylon, you score.
Just run in a straight line, any direction, other than backwards, I guess. But anywhere in a general forward motion, and you've got a touchdown. I am incredibly frustrated. It's been a frustrating year for Pollard. It looked like he was getting a bit better the last few weeks, and I thought he's over his injuries from end of last season. Maybe he's going to be great down the stretch, and because I think it was the opening drive of the game as well, and it just obviously then led to the fumble, and just I don't know. It's just kind of indicative of it's going to be one of them days, is it? I just found it such a frustrating play because I don't know how you don't get a touchdown there. Like, obviously a lot more issues throughout the day, but those kind of plays just make me shake my head, and I just can't express how frustrating I find them because the touchdown's there. Just take it.
Been a lot of whinging from the defensive line, particularly Parsons and Lawrence, the last day or two, or last couple of days, around just them not getting calls. And the passing, and Dallas got a soft one in the end zone on Prescott, which I don't think's roughing the passer.
Yeah.
The one that Micah Parsons gets done for, what can you do? He's hit him with his arm in like the back, not near the head or neck. I think just about took one step. What do you want? And then the refs aren't the reason Dallas lost. How would you miss the holding call on CD Lamb in the end zone where the Dolphins player has his hands in his pants and literally pulls them out? Like you can see the elastic. You can see CD Lamb's backside.
Everyone's having a Randy Moss game this week.
Yeah. And I know, luckily, another one got called after, and maybe that was one to make up. But
yeah, the CD does Dallas. Is that what it was?
CD does Dallas. Yeah, just agree. Just terrible. The refs are terrible, and that's not the reason Dallas lost. But I mean, just while we're on the subject, the refs are terrible. Dolphins. It does set up Dolphins Ravens, which is going to be a huge game, and potentially, it's going to have a huge say on that number one seed. And we've also got Cowboys Lions, which I think's real important game for both teams next week, given kind of where we've got to. And let's move on and talk about the Lions. The Lions, I had them hit the over, and the Detroit Lions have won the NFC North for the first time. So the first time they've won a division since they won the NFC Central in 92, on the 92 season. And it's the first time they're going to host a playoff game in 30 years. So congrats to the Detroit Lions. Just 1 point on this one, so it was 30-24 to the Lions. It felt like after the game, the Lions had kind of climbed their Mount Everest, and that it feels like this is it for the Lions because there was just such an outpouring of emotion. It was such a big deal. Are they going to struggle to go again in the playoffs?
I don't necessarily think so. I'm more concerned with their defense than I am their emotions, I must say, because it's not week 18. If they had to go again next week, maybe, but they can go into Dallas and lose, and it'll be disappointing. I mean, if they win, it'll be great for them, obviously. But if they do lose, it'll be disappointing because it's another road defeat. More Jared Goff talk on the road. How does he do? Etc. But the fact they've got another, I think they're at home against Minnesota, week 18, and as long as they kind of win that game, I think it kind of put to bed, they can get over the emotion of winning the division, which was great to see, to be fair. I love seeing that. Dan Campbell's obviously a very passionate, emotional head coach. Taylor Decker was in tears after the game. He's been there since 2018. And again, he's been through the rough of it with Detroit. So, great to see. But I think just having those 2 weeks before the playoff comes around, and two, Dallas will be a competitive game, Minnesota will be a competitive game. I think they'll be back to business, certainly, by the time the playoffs come around. Like I say, I'm just more concerned about the defense. Not being able to slow anybody down is kind of more of an issue.
I mean, Nick Mullins threw for 400 yards on him with 4 interceptions. which is mad.
That's a stat line.
Yeah. I mean, I know they have to chase the game and things like that. I mean, they just couldn't run the ball, to be fair, the Vikings, which is kind of why what happened. But yeah, Justin Jefferson had a huge game. So did KJ Osborne as well. But yeah, it was an entertaining one. And the fact that they only beat the Vikings by 6 with all those turnovers.
Yeah.
Is probably a concern for the Lions. Lions got back to something that I've been screaming about for weeks. Gibbs and Montgomery on the ball 32 times between them. They ran for 140 yards, I think 130 odd yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns as well. And you got the volume back to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a huge game. I think 14 targets, 12 grabs, 100 yards, and 106 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, kind of got back to that stuff that's made that offense really successful. Pretty straightforward stuff, really, and I think that's your recipe to win games, and you're gonna need to do that a lot more if your defense is as porous as it is. I think can we put the death knell in the Vikings at 7-8? Are they done?
Probably not. I would say yes. I think they've got to change the quarterback. I've never Nick Mullins is just.
Who do you go to?
Darren Hall.
Yeah, you would give it a go because I think I put something about Nick Mullins' career in our chat the last review because I said he's just a turnover machine. So now in his career he's got 31 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. It's nearly 1 for 1 whenever he gets touchdown interception, and it could have been a lot more than 4 as well.
When you watch that game season,
yeah. When you watch that game, I think he had one in the end zone where Brian Branch dropped that as well. He could have had a few more interceptions, and I think you have to go somewhere else. But again, it's that kind of year that if they win next week, then they're still in a chance because other teams have got some tough games, like we've mentioned about the Seahawks and all them. A lot of people have got to play. Not everyone can win, so I think it's huge. What have they got next week?
They have the Packers.
They've got the Packers. So if they beat the Packers, and then if the Lions are already in and they're not fighting for anything, 9-8, is that good enough for the NFC playoffs? Possibly. Again, it's a team which I'm not too fussed about getting there. At least they've got they've got the best wide receiver in the league who's made some outstanding catches, including that touchdown was ridiculous. So, but they're still in it. But but then it's that one weird thing. It's not another backup quarterback you could put Hall in. Could have one good game and then have the absolute stinker. I think if Kirk Cousins stayed fit, I'd be curious to see where they would have been. I think it would have been a tighter race for that NFC North. They'd just be
If Kirk Cousins was fit, these guys would have won 12, 13 games again.
Kirk Cousins might be MVP.
Yeah.
The close games they've been in, the one-score games again that we talked about, these guys being in constantly, I think they'd win 12, 13 games and won the division if Kirk Cousins had stayed fit, even without Justin Jefferson for that stretch, just because he's just so much more competent.
Yeah, I think I think the Vikings are done. Sorry.
No TJ Hawkinson out for the season, and that's probably why.
Yeah, that's my big thing is Hawkinson's been so good since he got to Minnesota. Volume machine, he just eats targets, and I'm pleased he got his contract. He held out a little bit with his ear infection, I think he said he was injured with, and got his contract before he came back to play. And I'll always cheer for players who get their contracts because he wouldn't be getting this contract on a torn ACL and MCL, so good for him. Yeah, but sucks to see
such a bad injury, and possibly that might affect the start of his next season as well.
Yeah, probably will. Yeah,
it's such a bad injury at this
but
time.
That to me is why I'm happy to rule them out of getting in the playoffs now, because Jefferson's incredible. But I just think it's just too much to count on. And I think if Jaron Hall wins 2 games, just bench him and bring Josh Dobbs back for 2. Just don't let them get to that 3rd game. That's kind of the trick, I think, with these backups. And they've got enough of them. They've got 3 backups that can rotate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think even against Green Bay's porous defense, Justin Jefferson might eat because Jair Alexander's going to be suspended. But Yeah, I just think it's going to be too much for them.
Gonna be a struggle, and then finish off in Detroit. So yeah, it depends what they've got, but yeah, heck of a game really. That I kind of thought the way it was going, the Lions were gonna, just find that one comfortably, and they just make it difficult. Speaking of a team that's making things difficult, Byron, you had the over in Packers Panthers, which we've discussed. Joe, you were on Jags Bucks over 42.5. Or was it just over 42? I can't see. Anyway, it didn't hit.
42.5 because it was 42.
42, yeah.
And they didn't get, and they went for 2-point conversions at the end, the Jaguars, and didn't get either. So they could have just kicked one and just help a guy out.
Yeah. Jaguars, as we mentioned before, they've lost 4 straight. They are a mess right now. Lost this by 18 to the Bucks. How do you stop the rot if you're the Jaguars and find a way to win this division?
I mean, this was 30-0 as well. Like going into the fourth quarter, I believe, basically. It was 30-0. I don't really know what the Jags need to do. I can't think of a team who's kind of just faded out completely. And Trevor Lawrence hasn't missed a game.
Yeah, he's definitely been banged up and hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't look right.
But, yeah, you look at the quarterbacks that have played in games this season and have dragged teams to wins. And if Trevor Lawrence isn't right, sit him.
Yeah.
But it just feels like the entire team has kind of essentially tossed it off and given up. And I don't really know what you do to remedy that. You can't go down 30-0. Like,
I think as well, they need to be a bit more committed. The way it went obviously kind of dictated that they needed to throw the ball, but kind of situation you've got with Lawrence, the concussion, the ankle injury, try and help him out a bit. The ground game was non-existent for the Jaguars.
Yeah. So Lawrence got the most yards, didn't he, with 29 out of 37. If you say that, I think they've just hit it's the worst possible position where your defense has dropped off a cliff, and then your quarterback is just not playing well. Like, I understand he's like playing hurt, but some of the interceptions, like, especially the second one where he just floated it over the wide receiver, like, you can't blame that on injuries. I think he's just making daft decisions, and he's just suddenly got a fumbling problem where he just can't keep hold of the ball whenever he gets sacked or tackled. So, when the Bucks was at the beginning, I think when you look at the first half, and this has been a few first halves, I think it was the same against was it Baltimore? I think you had the overpour where the Jags are just having a disaster where they're missing field goals. So it went interception, missed field goal, interception, punt, fumble, downs. That was the first 6 possessions. So if you do that against any team, you're not going to win. You're going to be behind. And I think they're just making way too many mistakes. And they're just lucky that, CJ Stroud's got injured and, the Colts are still losing, and it makes it interesting. And right now it feels like, are they actually going to win any more games? Because if they carry on playing how they are, they're not. And then they're not even going to make the playoffs, which would have been a big shout at the start of the year. It's, because they've got it helps they got the Panthers next week. I think that's probably
does it?
I mean, it definitely helps.
If you got to choose anyone,
if I take him as my favourite.
Well, it's all on you, Paul, isn't it? Then
should I just do a massive bet on Jaguars to not make the playoffs, and then take them as my favourite for a week for the FourFold?
I'm glad you're finding a way to get something out of backing a favourite. Although, again, the way your luck's going, Jags will cover it and make the playoffs then. So
the 6.5-point favourite next week against Panthers, which feels a lot.
That feels way too much.
Just too many points. Yeah, let's talk about the Bucks though, because again, Baker Mayfield, solid again, great game. Mike Evans, what more? How many more superlatives can you put on? A surefire Hall of Famer. And I think they're there. I think it's just one more game now for the Bucks to win in that NFC South. He's done, and they've won that 2 years in a row and got a home playoff game.
Who would have thought that Mayfield looks better than Tom Brady in this offense?
Wild, right?
Yeah, I think because they'll have to win one game. So I know they've got Saints this week, but then they've got Panthers the week after. So it's should go in 1 or 2, and you would say a pretty favourites to win it. Which a few weeks ago, I don't think anyone would have.
I think they
put big money on there.
Yeah, I think they get it done this week. You can just trust them more. I think at the minute, defense has looked better. Offense has been solid, and then you've just got guys who can make plays for you. And I think that's just, sometimes it's not about X's and O's; it's about Jimmys and Joes. And I think they've got the guys that can make the plays. So yeah, I think I'm all in on the Bucs next week, which definitely means they'll lose.
Just to speak to the Jags and the AFC South's terribleness, they have an opportunity that they wouldn't want to take, but they have the opportunity to do something an AFC division has never done in the NFL. NFC divisions have done it 6 times. Have you any guesses?
Not have a winning team? Would team with a winning record? No?
Incorrect. Have all 4 teams, or every team in the division, have a negative point differential.
Oh.
So the NFC South done it in 21, 2014, NFC West done it in 2010, 2006, 2004, and the NFC Central done it in 1978, and the AFC has never done it. All 4 teams currently have a negative point differential.
So they do, yeah.
Never been done in the AFC before. There's a John Byrne special as well. I haven't even stolen that from anywhere.
Nice.
Yeah, done a lot of clicking through seasons on TFI yesterday, digging that one out. But they do play each other, so it might be difficult to actually get to because Texans are only -3.
Texans are the -3, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's like Jags are -12, Colts are -18. So that's why I'm putting it out there now, because I think that might go by Sunday.
Yeah, I love it though. Yeah, a lot of time and effort.
2 ties there, Byron.
Oh yeah, that's a very good shout.
Yeah, I can't believe we've still not had a tie. When was the last season we didn't have a tie? Go find that out.
Not even a please.
No, it's just your job.
All right, Roy Keane.
I'm really struggling. Sorry. Next one. Simon took the over in Commanders Jets, and what a game this turned out to be. So the Jets obviously were steamrolling it. I think they were 21-0 up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Commanders came back from absolutely nowhere. Jacoby Brissett launching the ball downfield, and ended up being a title on the Jets. Won but didn't cover because they were 3-point favourites. 30-28. One I mentioned in our chat, but for the purposes, so I think Jacoby Brissett's going to start next week. So Sam Howell's been sat down now.
Yeah.
As Sam Howell played himself out of what looked to be a pretty secure quarterback job there in Commanders for next year.
I think so.
Well, I would only say the only thing is they're going to get a new staff, because I think Bieniemy's probably played himself out of that head coaching role as well. So I would say the only saving face is if someone new comes in and they haven't got a high draft pick, or they don't pick a quarterback, then he's still got a chance. He's got to be out other backup quarterbacks, because I can't imagine there's many decent quarterbacks going to be on the market next year, unless they get Kirk Cousins back as a new regime. But
right now they're at 3.
Yeah.
So
okay,
it's about the draft. So they're at 3 Washington at the minute, because the Patriots won.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got Chicago. I think they do. Cardinals won't surely with Kyler. And
unless a trade.
Could somebody trade up? But then potentially at 3, you might get Drake May out of North Carolina at 3. So yeah, but I don't know. Depends the ownership like Sam Howell enough. I don't know, but yeah, I just think he's been so bad from understanding the difficulties that he's had. And that he does need some help. Absolutely, that O-line's been awful. Some of those sacks are on him for holding the ball too long. He's looked really good in stretches, but then he's looked horrendous these last 3 weeks.
To me, he kind of looks like a quarterback from the wrong era. Like, if he can just drop back and sling it, it's fine. But anything much above that, and he kind of melts. And, this is his first real season as a starter. He's not in an ideal situation. He's got good pass catchers, but it's porous O-line. Rivera's lost the locker room, I think, it's fairly clear at this point, and he's going to be sacked, a dead man walking. I don't think he will be the starter next year, but I think he can play himself back into a spot as being a spot starter. And I don't think he's done in the league, but if you look at how kind of the vibe around him was, say, even up to week 10, 11, to how the seasons fell apart, I think he probably has played himself as a starter. I think at best he's going to be fighting for it'll be a camp battle going into next year is more likely than him starting anywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say my prediction is he'll start the first 2 or 3 games next year with a rookie quarterback behind him. He has a bit of a disaster, and they'll be like the typical story, like, we're not going to play him until he's ready. We're going to give it 6 or 10 weeks to Howell, and then 3 weeks in, they chuck in the rookie in. But this was a game with the fumble, which I mentioned earlier, was a Crowder fumble. I don't know if you saw the punt return where he just switched hands and just chucked it in the air.
It just popped
which was crazy.
Yeah.
Because it was a good run back, and then suddenly you just see a massive scrum, and then a ball just flying in the air, and a big man just diving through.
It was, yeah.
It's crazy.
You mentioned, really not trying to hide how much they're trying to tank the Commanders there. Just go throw the ball up, Jameson.
Jameson Crowder revenge game as well.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly much revenge, was it? Bloody hell. Anyway, with just an interesting point. So if they finish at 3 and did take Drake May is their Sam Howell and him are best buddies because they've come from the same school, played on the same team, actually really good mates, and it'd be interesting if they push them into a battle. That would be real interesting.
Well, there's your Hard Knocks team.
Yeah, well, there you go. That'd just be a great watch. Shout out as well, just for selfish reasons. Chris Rodriguez on the ground, great fantasy game day shout, Byron. I don't think many other people had him. They end up with 20 points or somewhere close to 20 points, 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very productive. Great fantasy game day differential there.
If we're shouting out just players as well, shout out Breece Hall. So in his 22nd game of his career, he had, for the second time in his career, 95 or more rush yards and 95 or more receiving yards. In NFL history, only one player has 3. That is Walter Payton, who played 190 games. Nobody has more than 3.
Wow.
Pretty incredible, yeah. That is from Football Perspective on Twitter. Source that stat. That is not one of mine. And he rightly got upset when CBS stole his tweet without credit.
Oh.
It looks like Bob Saller's keeping his job as well.
Yeah, so they've just said they're coming back. Going to give this thing another go with Aaron Rodgers next year.
It's the Jets.
Let's see how we go. All right, let's move on. Just another year. I took the under in Saints, Rams, and Saints with that last touchdown. Just killed that. Byron, you were under Commanders, Jets, under 37 or 37.5. It didn't hit. Browns, Texans, where there were just points everywhere. 36-22 to the Cleveland Browns. And this was the Joe Flacco, Amari Cooper show.
Incredible.
11 receptions, 265 yards and 2 touchdowns from Amari Cooper and a 2-point conversion. Absolutely.
Glad I put it back in my fantasy.
Yeah, unplayable.
I had him on my bench last week.
Unplayable.
Probably what inspired him.
Yeah.
Got on Amari Cooper's locker room.
Yeah. A ridiculous game from Amari Cooper. I think he set the Browns single game receiving yards record. Took that one from Josh Gordon. And Joe Flacco, he's just going to continue to sling the ball downfield and good things keep on happening. Yeah.
It's not going to happen because it's going to be DeMar Hamlin, which I hate still as the comeback player of the year. Joe Flacco should be in a fucking shout for it. Yeah. I don't care if he's only played 5 games. I don't care. I can't think of a player who's had a bigger comeback impact on a team than Joe Flacco.
And he's now second in the list.
Oh, is he?
So you've got DeMar Hamlin at minus 350, and then Joe Flacco at plus 350. Baker next at plus 900.
I hadn't even checked the odds on this one, so kind of annoyed the market agrees with me, but I'm pleased it does at the same time. I thought I was making a hot take. Clearly not.
Let's say, because when you're getting these awards the week before the Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
These come out. What if Joe Flacco has won the AFC Championship game at that point? Then it's him.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Too much time's gone by. Damar Hamlin, he's not really played. He's played in one game.
He's played on special teams on like
Played
6, I
special
think,
teams,
and I think on defense 2 times. It's not enough. Yeah, like incredible story, incredible human story, but just not much of an NFL one this year.
Yeah. But yeah, the Browns and this offense. Sorry, as the defense has kind of slowed down, that where the first half of the season it was all about the defense and could you just get enough offensively to win games? That kind of now that's flipped because the defense hasn't been as good. It was pretty good in this one until late on Texans just scored some trash garbage time points. But it's all about the offense now, and yeah, they're in. They've won 10 games. They're in, right? I mean, they're not in, but they're in.
Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's got the odds thing up to tell us what odds they are for.
I mean, Joe will tell us the percentage. I think he's got it up on his screen, but it's pretty high. I think it must be 90 something percent.
Yeah.
Chance that they're in. You're looking at
it's greater than 99%, but not quite 100. It says.
Yeah. So maybe they don't even need another win. They could upset somebody in the playoffs. I mean, who would they be playing right now? They're 5, so who the 5 would play the 4? They'd go to Jacksonville.
Yeah, they go to the AFC South winner.
They'd beat the Jaguars now. They'd beat the Colts. They'd beat the Texans.
Yeah,
they've just beat the Texans. They'd beat them again.
Even with the Jags as well, right?
Sorry,
they just beat the Jags as well in Cleveland, I think.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they fear no man. I think at this point.
And right, you know what? I think if they came across the Chiefs in the playoffs, I think they beat the Chiefs right now.
And if it plays out as it is, if the Browns win against Jacksonville, as it would be, and the Chiefs win and the Dolphins win their playoff games, then divisional round would be Joe Flacco at Baltimore.
That would be tremendous. What story.
Beautiful, yeah. Imagine Joe Flacco not going to Ravens out the playoffs.
That'd be incredible, yeah.
Revenge on Lamar for taking his job.
Absolutely. Texans, I mean, not too much. We saw. I didn't really understand what they were doing here. We saw dual. What were the? I don't understand what they were doing. Bouncing around between Case Keenum and Davis Mills.
Yeah.
Just trying to get something going.
I think that's a lot of. You're just looking for a spark, isn't it? And there isn't one there without CJ Stroud. And no Tank Dell.
Yeah. I think Stroud has to be back next week, doesn't he? I think he would, because that'd be 3 weeks since the concussion, right? And they play Titans and then Indianapolis, which could be a win in that Texans Colts game could be a win in you're in.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't end up being the AFC East division game, if the Dolphins, win out, I think that'd be the Sunday night game, wouldn't it? Colts.
Feels like that. That feels like it's got the Saturday night one written all over it.
I just mean for week 18.
Yeah,
well, I'm guessing. Yeah, well, I'm guessing because if Jags win, well, they would not want to play the games at the same time. Because if Jags win again,
it depends if it's independent of anything else or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, which we want more things on the line in week 18. So hopefully we do get that. That's a winning you're in game. But yeah, nothing too much to say really from the Texans. Then the defense kind of really needs to step up a little bit. They were not only missing Stroud, missed Will Anderson as well, didn't they? Which was huge. So yeah, hopefully those guys can come back and give them a shot, because it's been such a good season for them. Cool. And then Simon's finished off. He went under for Cowboys Dolphins, which was comfortably under. Yeah. So we're down to Byron and Joe. It's almost done, right? So Joe is 6 games behind Byron with 8 picks to go. So Byron can get it all closed off in week 17. I just need to try and find a way to get one of these FourFolds done, and also limit how much money I'm sending to charity, because it's going to be a lot of money at the minute. 15 times a reasonable amount.
I love that Christmas spirit as well. I need to limit what I'm sending to charity. There he is, Scrooge McRedman.
That's not what that's not what I meant.
That's what you said.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Clip that. That's gone on TikTok.
That's not the clip. We haven't done clips for weeks, right? And then
they're very stressful to make.
We're not. Yeah, they're not easy, which is why I tasked you with it because it's a pain in the ass to do.
Yeah, it's easy to do Charlie picks.
Yeah, but we'll get back on the clips at some point.
Yeah,
but we're not starting with that.
We'll see.
So Joe 6 games behind Byron. So come on, Joe, keep it alive until week 18 for us, mate. It doesn't matter if Byron goes 4-0, it's done, isn't it? So
let's hope we all get 4-0 this week,
or even 3.
End it this week. I'll get 4-0.
We need to win stat. We've gone a few weeks without hitting one. We need to win more money for the people. I think that we're probably down to about it's only 200 quid profit if you placed a $5 on every single one of our FourFolds over the course of the season, which I still think is pretty good, to be fair. Agreed. So that's the end of that. Let's just run through the 5 games that we've missed, and I can't wait to talk about the last one. The Seahawks. Yes, let's just talk about the 5 games we missed. We all went 8-8 on the ATS picks this week, so we're just as we were. 2 games between Joe and Byron, 126 to 124, and I'm 8 games behind. I'm running out of. I'm still 32 picks, isn't there? So yeah, but it's going to take quite the turnaround. Let's touch on the games that we haven't talked about. So let's start with Seattle. Got a big win in the end. I'm just covered against the Titans. Scored very late on to take the lead. It was Parkinson.
Yeah, Colby Parkinson.
Yeah, Colby Parkinson. Scored about a minute to go. And the Titans got the ball back, but looked for a real long time that it was going to be the Titans that were going to finish off with a big win. Kind of sort of shouted out that maybe they've got one more big win in them. They went back to obviously Tannehill because Will Levis was injured. Got a pretty decent game from Derrick Henry, and yeah, the Seahawks just found a way, and they're still alive in the NFC wildcard, and they're in a playoff spot right now.
I think basically what Byron said earlier, it's like the Bills of the NFC where they've just had a huge win. You thought they might kick on against a team who's been eliminated, and then they're having to score in the last few seconds to sneak out a win. I think Seahawks out there, all of them who's in the playoffs, are the least scariest. I think they've got a good game in them, but I also think they're not. I don't think they're that special. I think they've just a few special games, and I think we've mentioned they got a big game coming up next week. See how that works, but yeah, it was a huge win because if they'd lost that, then then that win against the Eagles was for nothing. So they keep that momentum going. Gino being back. But yeah, not much more to say about it, to be honest.
Yeah, Seahawks win 20-17. Other games we haven't talked about: Cardinals, Bears. This was the game that screwed us from having a real chance at winning Fantasy Gameday because DJ Moore, when he went out injured, now he's back in, but he just had no. He was just clearly 3 receptions for 18 yards. It was he was done.
We had Fields with him, right, which obviously impacted Fields' performance.
Yeah. But I think we got enough. We got 20 points from Fields, but it would have been nice. All of a sudden that could have been 30, and DJ Moore, we could have got 15-24, and we'd have had a real shot at winning. But yeah, Bears won 27-16. Bears still kind of picking up some wins. They've got that number one. I say number one pick all tied up. The Panthers winning again. I think is that the Panthers and Cardinals that are on 3? They're both on 3 wins.
No, Panthers are on 2.
Panthers are on 2. No, they lost.
I think
it feels like
basically the Panthers need to win out for the Bears not to get it because of strength of schedule.
That's right.
So I think it's like 75-80% chance the Bears get it still.
Cool. But they've still got another, obviously, pick at, I think it's 8 now. It was 5. Yeah. It's 8. You got 7, Joe? Or do you just not know how many fingers to hold up? 8, yeah, it's at 8. Which makes then actually their strategy interesting to early draft talk. But yeah, in this one, I didn't see too much of this one because Cowboys Dolphins were on, and that was the main game I was watching. But Khalil Herbert, pretty solid game on the ground. Cole Kmet through the air. And the Cardinals just feel like they're just on fumes now, don't they? I think.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, you mentioned Cole Kmet there. You mentioned Khalil Herbert. Talked about Fields, DJ Moore. I had a little fun fact, though. I know you like my what was number one on kind of. This is where this was, yeah. So, who caught a touchdown for the Bears this week?
Who did? It was. It was Mercedes Lewis.
It was Mercedes Lewis, yeah. Do you know what was number one in the UK on Mercedes Lewis when he scored his first touchdown in the NFL?
So you're talking what? How many years? I'll give you, is it 14, 15?
It was November 27, 2006.
Oh, it was 17 years ago.
It was.
November 2006.
Yep.
Girls Aloud.
Chiefs.
It was neither of those. Girls Aloud was probably closer. It was former boy band come man band with their comeback single, Patience. Take that.
Oh.
And just to put in perspective how long ago that is.
What a record, by the way.
Yeah, they were coming back. Obviously, a huge deal. Breaking news. Before their comeback, they released 3 albums. Take that. In the 90s. Since Mercedes Lewis scored his first touchdown, they've released 6 albums, and he's still out here catching touchdowns.
Excellent stuff.
Shout out Mercedes.
Love to take that related to that. Shout out Gary Barlow and the boys.
And a lot of people thought Mercedes Lewis was going to retire last year, but it turns out he is back for good.
Gag of the year. It's the gag of the year. Let's move on. Nothing more to say on the game than that. Patriots, Broncos. So this was not Sunday Night Football. It was in the Sunday Night Football slot, but it was the holiday special from the NFL Network. And the Patriots have killed the Broncos 26-23. The 2 touchdowns in the space of 7 seconds. We saw that happen in another game as well. It just kind of all imploded on the Broncos, really, didn't it? So much so that they're going to sit Russ and start Jared Stidham.
It's a great final straw.
It's for money reasons, though, isn't it? Isn't it like not to say if he plays the next 2 games, he's guaranteed like 30-odd million or something?
If he gets injured, they can't cut him, basically. It's an injury guarantee, which is
wild when you are... I want to still... You're one game at the playoffs at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sean Payton, though, has reached his limit with him. I just think it's sounding more Frankenstein than Russell Wilson, I feel, but or Vampire. I was going for Mr. Unlimited, though. I think I've been harping on this more than most, but even in this good spell, Russell Wilson has been pretty trash, I think. He's been so restricted, and he knows that he can't throw the ball. He does bits here and there, but they want rid of him. And
where's the out, though? Because from a contract perspective, they're not in a great position this year, right? It's next year where I think there's the break. Is that right?
The next year is a friendlier break, but I think it's just going to be a post-June first cut and eat it, essentially. Spread it out over the next 2 years, at least.
Yeah, it just seems, and I suppose I get it from that perspective, but it is a rough one. And, we've seen sort of Sean Payton on the sideline with him. It's weird.
Last week as well, that was Sean Payton's fault.
It was bad, yeah.
But Sean Payton's not going to come out and say that was my fault. Last week, Sean Payton should have challenged that touchdown because he would have got it. But instead, he just blamed Russell Wilson for the play call. And it's like, Russell Wilson sucks, but so do you.
Yeah. Broncos finish up with Chargers and Raiders, 2 games they could win, and they could still get it anyway.
So we're going to have a Jared Stidham revenge game in week 18 and Jared Stidham versus Easton Stick in week 17. What is the NFL this year?
Brilliant. Great TV, this.
Prediction. I've got a prediction in terms of Broncos. Do you think they could trade for Kyler Murray? Would they be a kind of team?
I think Sean Payton might fucking hate Kyler Murray.
With what, though? Because what they gave up to trade for Russ and what they had to trade for Sean Payton.
I'm just thinking because
they've got the first round picks now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they could the next 2 or 3 years, and Cardinals might take that just because they've got the number 2 pick. So
I think the Cardinals will take it.
Yeah.
I just thought, I think it's too much for Denver to give up. Unless, like, it's not as much as we think, but I think it's not obvious. Probably is as much as we think because we're the ones who think it.
Or Broncos might try and move up to that number 2 if the Cardinals are satisfied with a.
I think it's much more likely to try and move up for a rookie.
Yeah.
Again, there's just something about the Kyler Murray thing that I think would rub Sean Payton the wrong way. Like, doesn't take the game seriously enough. All these like narratives that are there about Kyler Murray that I don't necessarily agree with or what have you, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like a great fit to me that he would love.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I mean, not too much to say about this game, really. Should we just move on from it? Because, let's talk about this one, though. Real interesting story. Raiders, the Chiefs. Let's start with the Raiders before we all pile in on the Chiefs. Managed to win this game with not by, it wasn't the reason why they won the game, but they didn't complete a pass after the end of the first quarter and won this game. That, if I said let's not pile in on the Chiefs, that stat itself is piling in on the Chiefs, isn't it? Incredible. We also saw the Raiders score twice in like 14 seconds or whatever it was. Just bizarre. And I don't know if the Chiefs are just searching for something to get them going, but just a real bizarre. The fumble recovery for the touchdown where you're getting Patrick Mahomes to motion, snapping the ball to a running back, to have him in motion to take it over at the match. Just a bizarre play call. And I know, Andy Reid's very creative and all that. That was just fucking stupid. And
I think that says it all about that offense. I think they're struggling that much that they're like, we've got to try and come up with these crazy plays in order to get it. And there was like no need for it because they'd just gone and scored a touchdown. It felt like they're in control. The Raiders just punted it back. And then suddenly you just let them back in by doing that within, if they did it like midfield, about okay, but to do that within like your own 20 for that risk where it looks like Mahomes didn't think he was going to get the ball, but they handed it to him anyway. It just felt crazy, and he just gave the Raiders life. And then what happened the next play afterwards, where Jones, he seemed like proper chirps in at Mahomes as well as he was running the interception in that. It's good, but then you see he went to give the ball to a kid, a Chiefs fan's kid, and then just took it away.
He's denied that's what happened.
Well, the video clearly shows that's what happened.
I'm not sure it does, to be fair to Jack Jones. So there is a guy who comes behind to try and snatch the ball, and he said that's why he took the ball back, which I hate because I love the villain angle.
Yeah,
I love the Grinch on Christmas. But there is some guy who like reaches forward as he lifts the ball, like the guy's reaching ahead of the kid, and he said he's seen him doing it, so he pulled the ball back. I hate that might be true because, like I said, I love the villain angle. I think that is badass and brilliant. But balance and fairness, I felt like I should point out that he's denied it. As much as I hate that, and I wish he was just being a dickhead.
Yeah, but I mean, this Chiefs thing about it's the offense that's struggling. We saw Harrison Butker miss a 35, 36-yard field goal as well. Like the woes of the offense are infecting everything else as well. Just a mess. I think we thought, there's gonna be a run. They'll find that they're not. They're just too broken. Mahomes' decision making has been awful as well. And I was trying to force things, and they're done. These could be, someone could go into not Hall Arrowhead, is it? But Arrowhead and beat them, and they're done in the wildcard round.
Yeah, and I think it's another thing to a different degree. Kind of touched on the Browns earlier, of like defense was carrying it. The defense isn't carrying anything right now for the Chiefs either. Like they're better than the offense, but they're not good enough to carry anybody. Yeah. And that's understandable. They're a young defense. You shouldn't really, when you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, you shouldn't be expecting your defense to carry you anywhere. Yeah. They should be doing the heavy lifting. And Kelce looks really banged up. He's been the best tight end in football for 6-7 years in a row, every year. Yeah. Eventually, it takes its toll on you. He's 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. and he looks frustrated. He looks tired. He looks beat up right now. Looks like he needs a break. He's not going to be getting one until it's the end of the season, whenever that is. And yeah, I just don't see. I don't see where the spark is for the Chiefs offense. It doesn't seem to exist. Pacheco is probably going to be out this week. He took a boot to the head, which
they went through the table.
Then went through the table. Yeah. That was one Cindy was actually watching with me. That game, and she wasn't really watching it. She was like, it was on while she was sat with me, and just heard the line of like, Pacheco doesn't have his helmet on. He just got kicked in the head, and she looks up. She's like, "How is that? What are you watching? There's no football." I'm like, "Yeah, just I don't really know what happened even. I don't think Pacheco does even. I think it might be a week before he does." So yeah, like it feels silly to be like, "Well, you can't do without Isaiah Pacheco," because I don't think it really matters too much whether he's there or not in terms of is that offense fixable. They're just wide receiver talent's just not there, and
it's broken.
I was going to say, I think that's a big issue is the fact that teams can just cover Kelsey out the game. They're just like, let's just, and they just because no one else who scares them. It's just like none of the other ones. A big shout out to the Raiders defense though. On the other end, like Max Crosby was in the backfield, and is it Malcolm Collins?
Yeah, he got the 3 sacks, didn't he? 3 sacks, 4 sacks velocity. Yeah, they were just that line was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as a whole,
and now they're
4 Raiders at a time in the backfield.
One game back from the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't make the same mistake you did with Rich Bisaccia and you chose Josh McDaniel. I know you've got to go through a process. Give Antonio Pierce that job. He's done an incredible. Think about where they were in the state of that team. 7-8 weeks ago? How many games has he had?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just an incredible job. To the one game behind 500. You mentioned one game back from the playoffs, but one game.
And they got the Colts next week as well, which is huge for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, what are they to sneak in?
They got Colts and Broncos, so they'll be 9-8.
To make playoffs, plus 1,200.
Yeah, if they win the last 2 on the playoff predictor, I have them getting in.
Yeah.
And their games aren't tough, really. They've got the Jarrett Stidham revenge game last week, and like Joe says, they've got the Colts next week.
Yeah, plus 1,200. Of the teams that are still available to back, because they're not all on, obviously, for obvious reasons, there's only the Bears that have got bigger odds than them. We could get some good value there. Plus 1,200 the Raiders. Excuse me. Sorry, I've gone again.
And Antonio Pierce as well has really got that. I know he's starting out the defense for this game, but like just in general, they've gone from being like one of the league bottom few to a real strength.
Yeah.
So you give him a play caller who can come in and call offense rather than just putting it together mid-season. I think a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and it's kind of best of both worlds. If they do miss out on the playoffs, they're going to have a top 15-ish pick.
Yeah.
It's maybe not enough to, because AOC I don't think is the future as much as he's been fine in fill-in mode. Jimmy G is obviously not the future. Not sure how outable his contract is, but whatever it is, I'd like to see them move up and get a quarterback if it's possible.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how they set up, but yeah, certainly a much happier second half of the season for the Raiders, and Chiefs are in a mess. Joe, we're going to finish off our look at the games.
Winners and losers, yeah. Go.
I don't know. Well, I mean, we could do that.
Literally,
yeah. The Ravens went into San Francisco and absolutely slapped around the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. Sam Darnold, garbage time touchdown, made it look a little bit better. It was 33-19. The Ravens absolutely killed the night. This was so one-sided. I didn't see this coming out. I picked the Ravens ATS, thought they would just keep it close and the Niners would win. Yeah, you know what? I might have been sleeping on the Ravens, thinking how good they were, and I think it's because of the nature of the 3 losses that they had were really bad. that defense is incredible. They were helped a little bit, I think, by some mistakes from a San Francisco perspective. But I think a lot of it was the pressure that they were putting on. And Kyle Hamilton, in particular, is unbelievable. Yeah. And he's had a real good year. And I guess Dan Horton shouted him out as kind of one that's maybe gone under a little bit of the radar for the Raiders at safety. But just, phenomenal game. The 2 picks and, breaking up passes. He was just felt like he was everywhere. Joe, how have you taken it and where does it leave the Niners right now?
Well, just quick over. So, yes, the Niners in terms of, I still think they're the premier team in the NFC. I think they're still the favourites to win that. I think having Washington next week helps just to get that win back. And they dealt with a few injuries before the game and during the game. It is what it is. So I'm still confident they'll get the 1 seed and that week of rest will certainly help. I think, I don't know if I said on the pod, but I said it to a few people on Christmas Eve when they asked me about 49ers. I was like, the one team what scares me was the Ravens out of any other team in the NFL. That's the one team I don't want to see in the Super Bowl, just because I think other than the Niners, they're probably the most complete team on both sides of the ball, where that was the defense I was scared of, and Lamar Jackson just does Lamar Jackson things. And I've seen it enough times where I thought, you could have a great defense, and 49ers have had that over the few years, but there's certain quarterbacks where it doesn't matter how good your defense is, they'll find a way. It happened when they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and a few other teams where there's just these kind of quarterbacks where you think, oh, he's going to get sacked, and then suddenly he's just out the pocket and is, throwing a bomb down. So in terms of that, the scariest team I would say in the NFL. And I wasn't fully confident going into this game. It was definitely disappointing on the 49ers side. It was one of them weird games that even with the 3 interceptions at halftime, they only were down 4 with the ball coming out. So it was a bit like, it wasn't horrendous at that point. Obviously, the beginning of the third quarter was the killer, not scoring on that first drive. Then Jackson coming down, scoring, and then the 4th interception and them scoring straight away. That part that killed the game off. But if you had told me that, like I said at halftime, if your team was 3-0 down in turnovers and still within 4 points, then you would have taken that. In terms of Purdy, the first one was his worst interception. I think that was a bit of a killer because the 49ers have been playing well this year of scoring on the first drive. And I think even with how good the Baltimore defense played, the 49ers still put up a lot of yards on them and managed to have a lot of big plays. It was just the turnovers. So, the first one was the worst one. The other 3 were, you would say bad luck, some bad decisions, like the second one where it batted up in the air and it landed perfectly in the other defender's arms. And the third one was like a huge deflection as well. And then the 4th one, he got his arm just before he threw it. So, it happened.
The first one was he was just late on Debo, wasn't he? When he had Debo for a touchdown, didn't he?
Yeah, and the other 3 were just unlucky. And it's in terms of Purdy, that's who he is. That where there's a lot of games where it does take a few risks, and you get good luck or you get bad luck, and he felt like the bad luck was in. And I think the games they lost were similar. I think the defense having trouble, which is weird that they're missing a lot of tackles, it feels like, or people are bouncing off them. And there was a few things what Shanahan did. I think with that first interception, I don't think they ran it at all within that first drive. And I think sometimes just just give it to McCaffrey and see what he can do. You don't have to force a lot of the play, but it is what it is. And it could be then one of them weird. It could be them weird things there. That go on, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, obviously it's the drive. They got the big pass play to Kittle early on, wasn't it? And I think that's probably why. And they just kind of kept it to keep the foot down. But you're right. It needed balance.
Yeah, and I think, it might be one of them weird things where, because everyone was hyping up the 49ers, these are the best team, no one can beat them, they're, step above everyone. It could be that, with how the games went last week, it could be like a good thing that they managed to lose this, where they think, oh, we're not up, we're not the best team in the league. We still need to work, and we still need to work on quite a few things. And like I said, with it being the Commanders next week, I think Purdy will get back on track. Should comfortably win that game, and then it's against the Rams, which is like a huge game. in week 18 now for lots of reasons. For obviously the number one seed, I feel like they need the number one seed in terms of injuries they've had on the backfield. I think Armstead's still out. That offensive line by the second half was like hardly had any stars on there, with Williams going out. Then his replacement tackle, he went out. Banks went out. So there's a few injuries which you don't really want. I don't think there's any huge serious ones. And obviously with Purdy going out as well. So it should hopefully be healthy for the playoffs, and having the Commanders next week certainly helps.
The 49ers didn't take advantage of the fact that the refs were tackling Lamar in his own end zone for safeties as well.
I was going to say, it's telling how dominant this game ended up being that I thought we were going to get away with not even mentioning that. But yeah, it took this long. And Joe, you've been saying for weeks now that you think the Niners could take another loss as kind of a, kick up the arse. So yeah, you're probably right.
It's like a weird stat because I've just been looking at the box score, and it's like Purdy had the same amount, like 3 yards more than Jackson throwing, and Christian McCaffrey had more yards than the whole team, or the Baltimore team. So if you said that like before the game, it's just obviously the interceptions killed him, and obviously Baltimore had seen something which helped them out. But yeah, I think I don't see it something like 49ers are, are no longer the best team in the NFC or a bit of fraudsters. I think if these two teams play again, I think it's going to be a tighter game, and I think it's the mistakes which might will cost either team. I think, if Purdy doesn't throw that first instant, you could say that about all the games, it could be a completely different game. So I think Baltimore set on the level and probably slightly bit higher just because how that defense played, and you've got Lamar Jackson. I think that's still huge. He's definitely the better quarterback.
Jackson MVP now? Do we think that's done because of obviously Brock's nightmare that he had?
I think it depends on next week, just because Jackson still hasn't got the stats. I think that's like a big thing where if he has let's say they have a stinker against Miami, which could happen, then it throws it back up in the air. I think it might be done for Purdy in terms of throwing 4 interceptions. So I think
if Lamar, Tyreek, and CMC.
I would say. I think if Lamar is to win out, I think it's his. It's more if Lamar has a bit of a stinker next week, because again, he only it's one of them weird things where unless you watch the games, you just look at his stats like, oh, this is not an MVP kind of player. But when you actually watch the games, it's like, oh yeah, he does make the difference in these games. I think he deserves it, but I think it still could be how the Dolphins games goes next week.
Lamar's -175, and then CMC at +400. A new name on the list this week, I think. And the last one, and the biggest price you can get with Bet365. Oh no, sorry. Is +200, +25,000 Joe Flacco.
There you go.
Interestingly, though, just to shout out in terms of just to win outright, just to win the Super Bowl. So it's Niners still a favourite, +275. Ravens have come in now, +350. Real close between them two. So yeah, interesting. And I think if we get that Super Bowl again, there's no way that's happening again. I think it's much closer. That brings us to the end of our ATS picks again, all 8 and 8 this week. So 32 picks to go. Joe and Byron close. I'm a little bit too far behind. Let's do Fantasy Game Day, just a quick one. So shouted out already, but congrats to the winner. It was Dan Horton from the Utter Punts podcast, who was our guest on our preview show a couple of weeks ago. So not only did his Baltimore Ravens win a big game, he also won the big prize. I got a bonus prize from my touchdown box. So that was thrown in this week as well. So congrats, Dan, on your prize. And yeah, pretty solid lineup. So he went with CD's captain, who kind of the Cowboys went away from him after having kind of a big first quarter and first half, but did enough there with 50 points as captain. Kyler, Breece Hall, Byron, you mentioned it before, the start on Breece Hall, that led to 43 points. Chandler was a big letdown, but managed to carry him after his career game the week before. Amon-Ra, St. Brown, who was put on there twice. Sorry, Joe, that's me screenshotting it terribly. Tyler Lockett, which was, again, just a real, I suppose, bit of a left field one as value pick. Amari Cooper, everybody had, who did well. And then Dalton Schultz, who pretty solid game from a tight end perspective.
Yeah, nice solid week. CD Lamb was captain, obviously huge there, 50 points. And imagine if you captain Brees Hall or Amari.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. Amari Cooper getting 51 points, not as captain, is kind of obscene.
Yeah,
Great.
we finished 12th, and we went a bit of a different route, but we had Cooper as well, St. Brown, but we went on Gibbs as captain, and Rodriguez that we mentioned before was kind of our difference makers. But yeah, reminder, go join Fantasy Game Day. There's only a couple of weeks left for the season now. I'm not sure what they're doing from a playoff perspective. Best daily fantasy game in the UK. Download and register using promo code cover in all capital letters. You'll get a free entry after your first play. You've got to be over 18 and in the UK to play. Please gamble responsibly. Let's do winners and losers, and then let's wrap it up for the week because we've all got festivities to get on with. Winners and losers, Joe. Kick us off with your winner.
It's got to be the Ravens, isn't it? Lamar Jackson just proved everyone wrong that they're the top class team in the AFC and the NFL, certainly up there. So we'll give it to the Ravens.
Such a gracious loser, isn't he, Byron?
Doesn't do much of it, so.
That's fair. Byron, for you, your winner of the week?
The good people of Detroit.
Yeah, that's fair. About time they had... about time they had something. After a bad week, certainly press-wise. Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to go Joe Flacco again. I was going to go Josh Pickens, but good Joe Flacco, winner of the week. Sat on his couch a few weeks ago. Now he's going to be in the playoffs and outside shot for MVP. Or comeback player of the year, potentially. Joe, no, Joe, can you share that with us, please? You've just popped that in the chat. Did you see the police stat in Detroit? You've got to share that
I saw this a few weeks ago, but I'm sure it might be still true. Like, it's the lowest crime numbers in Detroit since the last time they won the division, like 1993. So obviously, the Lions winning is a big win. Like, I was backing up Byron's point, not just for the supporting the Lions, but also the crime stats itself. So well done, Detroit.
Amazing. Good
Maybe they
stuff.
can retire Robocop now.
Loser, I can't remember who asked first. Joe, Byron, you first. I can't remember.
Did Russell Wilson, which I just wanted him to be the loser of the week. He didn't even have a especially bad week, but he's had a pretty bad start to the next week, so I'm including him because it's before we recorded. Sorry.
Joe, your loser of the week.
Let's go Trevor Lawrence. I think I've been on this for the last month or two. I don't think he's as good as what was advertised when he first came in. So he's having a bit of a stinker last few weeks.
I'm going to go for the circus that is the Swifties in the NFL, tagged onto the Chiefs, and having a miserable time because they fucking suck. Swifties my losers of the week. Yeah, not good. Could be, just include them all in. Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid, throw them all in.
Oh, you really have got bad blood.
Chiefs fucking suck. He scored a touchdown for the Eagles. We've got gags, haven't we? Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, that brings to the end our week. My voice is going. NFL Week 16 review. We'll be back later in the week, tomorrow, with our Week 17 preview. I think we're going to be guestless unless we can pull a rabbit out of the hat. Understandably, trying to get someone in between Christmas and New Year hasn't really been so. See, we might have to double up a guest for Week 18. But yeah, come join us for that. As always, follow us. Good Teams with Great Teams cover over on Spotify, GTW_GTC over on YouTube, Twitter, X, TikTok, and Instagram to keep up to date with everything that we've got going on. And until next time, enjoy the rest of your Christmas break.
Cheers.